Welcome back, my little subscribers. Today I'm talking about the A6700, an amazing little camera, but I'm not keeping it, and I'm gonna tell you why. So that sounds like it's contradictory, and it is, because this is a great camera with tons of features, both for photo and for video, making this an ultimate compact hybrid camera. So why am I not keeping it? I gotta back up a little bit first. I had the camera for 2 weeks. I got to test it out, use it, and I honestly did love it. I love the features. It's a powerhouse of a camera. So I do want to talk about the things I liked and then end with the reasoning of why I'm not keeping it. So first off, the ergonomics. I'm a person who started with Sony with the A6000, and they've come a long way. Their grip, the camera feel, the build quality. It's just the A6700 represents to me the evolution of what Sony has become, putting in all of their technology, not skimping out, and always keeping it in that small form factor that was the A6000. Over time, I tried out different versions of the A6000, 6400, 6500, until this new one. I held off because I moved to full frame, and I finally saw an opportunity to get a backup camera, or a camera that I could just take with me anywhere, whether it's with family or for travel. And the A6700 felt like it could fit that mark and also give me everything I was looking for. Ergonomics, they're much better improved. The grip is great for the hand. The compact size is still there while offering you that grip. So nothing to complain from me on that side. Obviously, a lot of people are going to be used to bigger cameras like the full frames or even the DSLR days. This is way smaller. Like, if you were not in the photo world, you would think this is like a point and shoot camera. That's how small it is. Next thing I love about this camera, right away opening the box, it felt familiar, but at the same time, it's packed with attractive features that only the top of the line Sony cameras have right now. Like the A7R5, the FX3, all these newer generation cameras with the new autofocus, being able to put LUTs on it, faster shutter speed, newer sensor matching the one that's in the FX30. There's just tons of features. We got 4K 60, 4K 120, yes, with the occasional overheating, although I didn't experience that personally. So overall, we've got amazing set of features for a very compact camera. So you wouldn't really expect that it has all of those things in that little tiny body. But let's move on to the next part, the photo video aspects. This is the biggest selling point for me. This camera is just a perfect combination of the best of video and the best of photo that Sony has to offer. We're getting that knob at the top that separates your settings between photo and video. If you haven't had the opportunity to use one of Sony's cameras with that switch, I'm telling you, it makes a big difference being able to separate your settings, not having to go back into the menu, just putting it the way you want and getting the job done. This little camera has that switch. It separates the menus, so that helps when you're setting up for video, because if you're doing log or putting the preview of the LUTs, you want to separate your ISO, your shutter speed, all the settings that you want to start off your work with, versus photography that's a little bit different. So what are the things that stood out to me? I had never used a camera that you could preload LUTs in, and it sounds like a very basic thing, maybe for a lot of you video folks, but as someone who shoots these type of videos or does an occasional video work for some customers or clients, whatever, this LUT preview thing, or even baked in, is really changed my perspective on how I was planning my shots. And it changed it so much that I ended up getting a monitor where I could do the preview of LUTs for my A7S III and my 7R5. But if you saw my previous video, I recorded several video clips testing out the video quality. Essentially, this camera has an FX30 sensor with all of the FX30 features. We've got 4K 60, 4K 120, we've got the S-Log 3, we've got the LUTs. It's perfect little camera if you don't quite want to go into the cinema line and still have a viewfinder. Personally, I was really impressed with that little simple thing of being able to add LUTs, bake in LUTs, and I posted my video, and you'll be able to see the quality from 4K 24, 4K 60, with the LUT baked in. I wanted to experiment myself and see if I bake the LUT in and I'm using the histogram and everything to guide my shots in very different lighting scenarios at Disneyland, how good can they come out? So go ahead and watch that video. I've got tons of footage on there. Not professional by any means, but just to see what is the straight out of camera dynamic range and colors when you're putting in your LUTs baked in. On the photography side, I already mentioned being able to go to 1/8,000th of a second was a big change compared to the previous versions, and having the new autofocus with the AI module or whatever chip they call it, it was a great shooting experience. I didn't feel like I was gonna miss anything. The camera was very confident, and I combined this with the Sigma 18-50 2.8, which, by the way, those two together, they belong together. That little lens with that compact camera form was just an awesome thing to carry throughout the entire day that we were at Disneyland, and just being able to shoot 4K 60 or even more 4K 120 S-Log 3 with the LUTs baked in that compact size with that little zoom lens just was really cool experience to go through. Why am I not keeping it? It's like, it's the perfect camera, and it hurts that I had to say I'm not keeping it, and there were a couple of reasons. The main one is I kept having full frame at the back of my mind, and I know it's something dumb because you can get equally great footage out of a APS-C or Super 35 sensor, but the fact that I've been with full frame for so long now and invested so much on full frame glass, it kept making me think of the limitations, whether it was in the low light scenarios that I could not control, whether it was going wider on a lens, because on APS-C, because of the crop factor, you have to go a lot wider. So an 11 is a 16 on full frame, whereas the options are just a little bit more limited. Like Sony and Viltrox might be the only ones making some of those. Sigma's got their zoom, but their F4s, they're not, the comparison of the light that comes in is just very different. And every time I've tried to go back to APS-C for fun, I end up stepping back because I feel limited of wanting to open the aperture wider, wanting to create more separation, wanting to avoid those high ISOs. Even though the cameras are great at handling it, just I want a cleaner look. It's just the full frame look is what I've been accustomed to. So if you're out there and you're considering this camera and you're only using full frame, just keep that in mind. That might be a hesitation for you, because you're going to have to compromise, and I couldn't accept it. And all the features that stood out to me in the end, I am able to get in my full frame cameras. Some of them, of course, with workarounds. For example, I would love to see inputting LUTs to an A7S III or A7R5. You know, these cameras that have great video usage. They have the specs. They could handle having a LUT imported. So my workaround for now is using a monitor that allows me to do that. But other than that, all the other features I'm getting in my A7R5 and my A7S III in many ways. So if this is your main camera or your first camera, it is a great option. If it's gonna be an addition to what you've already built as a collection, I would say think about it. Know the constraints and the limitations that you'll have to work around. And if you're willing to accept them, it's a great camera. Like, this could be it would have been my third camera, my C camera, so to say, but also for travel and stuff, for family, things where it's not too serious. So those were my thoughts. But I'm gonna tell you the main reason that I hesitated was the moment I had it in my hands and I realized all the features and everything that they've put into this little A67 body. I kept thinking, if I already invested in full frame, and there are very small full frame lenses out there, they're all primes, but there are a variety of smaller lenses out there that you could use for full frame system, the A7C2 or A7CR is that. It's that compact form, not too much bigger than the A6700, and you're getting the full frame. So again, if you're considering this camera solely on the compactness of it, think about the A7C2, because in the end, I ended up concluding that I'm just gonna wait to buy an A7C2 later down the road, maybe buy it used once the prices have dropped a little bit. The investment didn't make sense, because the moment I started thinking about, oh, okay, I've got an A6700, I've got the 18 to 50, I was trying to think of what other focal lengths I wanted, and they just didn't overlap with what I've invested already in. So in the end, I was like, oh, I'm gonna need a 13 1.4, I'm gonna need 75 1.2. It's a whole different ecosystem, even though they're the same mount. So you would think that you will overlap the lenses a lot, and you can, but you're never gonna get the true focal length. So you're constantly working backwards to fill in those gaps with an APS-C. So those are my thoughts. Of course, that's not everyone's opinion. Let me know down below if you've tried the A6700, if it's your primary camera or not, because I think that makes a difference. If it's your primary camera, that thing can do everything. If it's an addition to what you already have as your workhorse setup, I think that's also very different. So great little camera. I think I loved it so much that I am planning to get an A7C2, because I love the compactness and all the features being able to be possible in a much smaller factor form. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Talked a lot about it, but something to think about if you're considering one of these compact cameras from Sony. Thanks for watching.